भाईचारे में कर देंगे वरना
हाँ.
right? So it's insane. Then they sent in the pitch because the state company, they got thirsty. Oh my god, 80K, yes, 100%. Then they sent in the pitch. Dekho, you guys are in the medical field and everything. Have you guys sent in any research proposals, anything like that, Kabhi?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Hey,
PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When you send in anything, how do you send something in? Like, you're just emailing in a proposal or anything like that to someone professional. How do you send it?
I don't know, you give like an outline of what you can do, realistic expectations, a timeline on what you can achieve and what resources you need. And,
sounds good. Okay.
If it's like a more serious proposal, then there's a vetting process where someone
But let's say
drills you on
physically,
it.
like how do you physically send it? Like, are you sending it in a document? Are you sending it in a file? Are you sending it in an email? Like, what's like the physical logistics?
It's everything. It can be a PDF document. It can be a presentation that you give on a slide with accompanying notes of like 30, 40 pages.
I can see where this is going.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
You know how you're not supposed to send it? On WhatsApp. You know how you're also not supposed to send it? On WhatsApp as a picture of the document. You know how you're also not supposed to send it? On WhatsApp as a picture of the document, which is just a blank paper जिसके ऊपर आपने pencil से लिखा हुआ है और सीधी लाइनें भी नहीं है.
And this is where like God dear, like this is our proposal
like,
that we're being shut down.
Clearly, I think I might have these pictures because I will always keep them for posterity. I got sent pictures of an A4 sheet जिसके ऊपर बंदे ने पेन से लिखा हुआ है कि ये स्क्रिप्ट है TVC की.
मतलब कॉन्फिडेंस बूस्ट तो इसके बाद अपने बारे में बड़ा मिलता होगा कि हम एटलीस्ट ये तो नहीं कर रहे.
हाँ, exactly. Right. This
like
is
Sara imposter syndrome out the window at this moment.
Exactly. This is the level of people who are in the industry securing actual contracts.
God damn.
Right? So clearly you guys can do better than that. The same agency, very soon after that,
hello and welcome again to another Q&A podcast. We are joined here today with, as always, Faraway Q. And from this time around, we have been talking about Tekken endlessly on the podcast. This time we thought, why not jump into FPS shooters and also into the scene of Valorant and CS in Pakistan? Because although like me and Qasim have like always been in like the more FPS kind of scene, like the whole scene has kind of like slipped below the radar. So I thought we would call on we're joined here by Mamoon Sabri, also known as TeaTime, a professional CS broadcaster, one of the first people in esports in Pakistan to go full time. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It is very funny to me, the Mamoon Sabri, because you also got the TeaTime spelling wrong in the email, which I was very much looking forward to calling you guys out for on podcast.
Oh my god!
So,
oh no!
You got my name wrong and you got my nickname wrong, so that's fun. You're off to a strong start, guys.
We hold ourselves to the highest standards, as you can see.
Yeah. It's all good. It happens, but it's all good. Anyway.
So, like, what brought you into this, like, kind of esports space to begin with? I mean, we see the Tekken scene kind of blew up past, like, 2019 with Arslan Ash going on to win EVO and stuff. But, like, I always understood that, like, underground tournaments were kind of always run in, like, arcades and, like, these kinds of things. What specifically drew you towards, like, FPS shooters and also the CS scene in general?
I'm not a CS person originally. I am a Dota person originally. I was competing in Dota. I was casting Dota for a few years, and then I got into Counter-Strike because I signed a contract with a company called ESL back in 2016. Which meant that I was a part of their sort of network of creators and everything. And they didn't have space for people to cast Dota because already had an agency contracted called Freaks for You Gaming, which did all of their Dota commentary. These things I hadn't been informed of when I signed the contract, and me being, young, dumb, and stupid, I was like, oh, yes, this means I'm going to be the next big Dota 2 commentator. Then I found out that's not a thing. They asked me, hey, do you want to do some other games? I did a few other games, and eventually I came to CS, and I had already been playing Counter-Strike for a while, but I was really shit at it. I'm still really shit at it. But I did fall in love with the game, like on the tactical side of things and all the professional side of things. So yeah, I'm multi-game actually. I am now in Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike alone for the past 7 years, I think, maybe six or 7 years. But before that, I was doing Dota. Other than that, as far as but my work in Pakistan also includes, just so you guys and the listeners know, I'm one of the leading consultants in the space. In my opinion, I'm the only legitimate consultant in the country, bar one or two people who have now become a little bit more legitimate over the past 2 years or so.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the original people. So I've worked on pretty much almost every major esports project that has taken place in Pakistan in the past 5-6 years in some capacity. Some exceptions now in these past 2 years because I've just been so busy with A, work abroad, but then B, also I've got very burnt out with consulting in Pakistan. It really sucks, and it wasn't really my income driver. So I took a break from that for a while. But yeah, that's who I am. That's what I do. That's how I got into Counter-Strike. It was accidental legal problems. It's not sexy, but yeah, there you go.
Well, as long as it worked out.
Yeah, as long as it worked out. I mean, anything to promote any kind of esports that's going on here. Me and Qasim, we're kind of into the FPS scene, and then we just not seen it present that much overall. So would you kind of introduce us how you got into gaming and how you got into CS specifically? It was, I know you kind of directed
Dota, right? Because that's what you started with.
I mean, Dota is the first one,
yeah. Dota was the first one. We can start off with Dota and then expand on to CS later on. Yeah.
Well, I was 6 years old and my brother was in Lums, and he brought back the root of all evil to our home, as my mother calls it, which was Dota. So that's how I got into Dota. It's very straightforward. I stayed for a week in Lums as well, and I played Dota with, on the Dota 1 servers that Lums people used to create back then. This is a long time ago. This is 20 years ago now, maybe 19 or something, 19 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And back in those days, it was hard to play Dota online and whatnot. I also couldn't get permission because, my mother didn't want me going on and listening to people swearing at me and telling me that, oh, I'm bad at the game, right? So understandable, I think. So I got into Dota that way. I also then wanted to be pro eventually because I was playing for so long. I thought I was very good. I wasn't very good. I was decent. I would probably be top 0.1 percentile, I think, maybe top 1 percentile, but well, not one, but probably 0.5, I guess, at my peak in 2013, 2014. Sorry,
when you thought you could go pro, how old were you?
I was 16, 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was young, but I wasn't really good enough, to be honest. And I realized that very quickly, that I just had my hands just weren't fast enough, to be frank. I don't mean this in a you need to have fast hands, but I had a really big, and I suffer from this to this date in gaming. I have a really big brain hand lag.
Yeah.
That I'll understand what to do and what's going on, but I'll take a long time to physically process it and do it then. So I realized that I'm not going to go pro, and I had never been in touch with the Pakistani community for actually any game. For every game and everything I've done, I got into the Pakistani community afterwards. So even when I was trying to compete in Dota, I was playing with Europeans. I wasn't playing with Pakistanis. So I found out about a Pakistani tournament, and that Pakistani tournament, I made some friends there, and there was some. It was really cool to finally have people around me who sort of are culturally relevant to me, and I can make friends with them. And one of them was a kid called Hamza Saqib, who to this date I think is the best commentator Pakistan has ever had. If he had just practiced, if he had just actually gotten better. Unfortunately, his life went down a different direction, which I'd rather not speak about. But Hamza Saqib asked me if I wanted to cast with him because my English अच्छी थी, मैं burger बच्चा था, मैं OA level वाला बच्चा था, right? तो मैंने कहा फिट है यार, मैं कर लूँगा. So I मैंने थोड़ी सी की, and I was like, oh, I'm great at this. I'm amazing. I'm gonna be like the next Obi-Wan one day. Who thank God I haven't been, because he turned out to be a sexual assailant. But hey, I'm still going strong. I haven't done that yet. Hopefully never. In all fairness, I don't know why I said yet. But yeah, so I got into casting because I hated my voice, and I didn't like the fact that I hated my voice when I was listening back to it. I thought,
as beginner podcasters, that's the exact same sentiment that I have. I absolutely hate my voice, and after editing podcasts for hours on end, I am so sick of my own voice. I'm please shut up. Why are you talking so much?
100%. It happens with everyone who's working on air, right? But I hated my voice, and I didn't like the fact that I hated how band I was, and I worked on that just so that I hated myself less, to be honest. And I eventually got a little bit better. Got lucky with a few opportunities, eventually got the ESL thing, went to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, like how'd you get into the ESL thing? Like, I mean, that's massive, like, in my opinion. Like, being from Pakistan, getting into ESL, like, ESL is like, for our viewers, like, I'll explain.
Well, for one thing, I was... so sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to explain ESL. Like, ESL is probably like the largest esports network for CS that's like internationally known.
It is the largest third-party esports company in the world. In terms of... For context of the viewers, first party esports companies are the game developers. Second parties are people who are working with the game developers to organize tournaments. This is generally white labeling stuff. Then third parties are people who work independent of game developers. So ESL is the largest third party esports company that has ever existed. It was sold in 2021 for a valuation of about $1 billion to the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, which which made it the first ever $1 billion acquisition in esports as well. ESL ESL was a very big deal even back in 2016. It was very cool. I think I am the first, not the first, but I was the first from like 5 to 8 people that I know who figured out how to stream on Twitch from Pakistan. And I got a fair bit of viewership, and I got like a fair few followers on my channel. It wasn't like a lot, but back then, even if for Pakistan you get like 850 to 900, 1,000 followers, it was a really big deal on Twitch because people couldn't figure out how to stream. So, and as far as viewership was concerned, I'm very proud of this. And admittedly, my hand in it is limited, but the peak viewership that we ever got for Dota when I was casting it was back in 2014. I think we had about 5,500 people watching live, which was insane.
Pretty
even
big.
Now, even right now, that's bigger than most esports tournaments that have been held. And shout out to Rahim Amer. He did so much of the great community building work behind that to actually make that possible. But so ESL had a Pakistani employee who I will not name. But he was basically on the lookout to be like, yaar, apne kisi launde ko pakad sakta hu network mein dalne ke liye, right? Like that's right. Because they have quotas to fulfill, and then they don't lose anything if they try to bring someone in from like a minor region. Right. So it was just cool of him. He brought me on. He reached out to me because he was friends with, funnily enough, the guy who founded Retailo. Wahaj Ahmed was one of the best Pakistani Dota captains back in the day. So I'm very good friends with Wahaj. So Wahaj ka dost tha wo, school वगैरह से. So वो बंदा फिर he reached out to me, and we sort of hit it off, and that's how I got into Counter-Strike.
So like there was no interest in like FPSs before this like contract.
I had played CS, but like उस तरह खेली थी ना, LAN zones में आके खेलता था बंदा, like ले खेल ली, right, like घर पे I'm playing matchmaking with friends and stuff, but I wasn't like competitive or anything. I watched a lot of it because I did think Counter-Strike was like the most fun esports to watch because of how easy it was for me to watch and get along. So
like even like the casters on Counter-Strike are like in a league of their own kind of scene.
Counter-Strike casters are the best casters out of any game, maybe other than League of Legends.
Maybe other than LoL,
But so it was really fun. I loved watching it, and when I got the chance, it was really cool. I was woefully unprepared, and I was really bad at it. But that happens, whatever.
In my experience, people who play Dota don't have time to get really hardcore into other games because
like Dota is like the game version of cocaine.
Who has less than 3,000 hours into the game.
Oh, I probably have more than 20,000 on Dota.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing that probably kept me away from Dota was like I always heard these horror stories of like people just giving up everything in their life just to play Dota, and like I understood that it's like the game version of cocaine. I was like, no man, I need to study. I need to get somewhere. I can't.
For context, I refuse to let my wife play Dota. I'm like, you can play whatever you want. I will teach you whatever game you want. You will never play Dota. I would never let this happen. मैंने तो निकाहनामा में लिखवाने वाला था.
Yes, कुछ भी खेल लो यार, बस Dota नहीं खेलना, हाथ like पहुंचना भी नहीं है वहां तक. Like anything that's MOBA related, like no man. Like and there's also the fact that like Dota has like a very much like I think an age range which you're like actually playing optimally, because like I think from my understanding it's like other RTSs where there's like actions per minute like matter a lot in how much you're doing.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
That's all bullshit. No. Yeah, APMs, look, you need a bare minimum, but realistically speaking, anyone who's playing Dota with an APM of over 180, other than a few select players who have an RTS background. For context for people, actions per minute is that every time you press a key, every time you do a keystroke, right? Like that's your APM. I don't think Dota you need more than 150 to 180 to play on like a pretty high level. I maybe not like a professional level, but like you can probably be top 0.01%.
Will you get out of plat though? That's the question.
I mean, the equivalent for Valorant, if that's what you're going to give, is you can probably be like immortal pretty easily on Dota with like 180 APM, right? Like you don't need the crazy RTS StarCraft 1 450 flash ke APM aaya hai, right? Like brute wars बैठे खेलने नहीं होनी चाहिए. Certain places it helps, certain places it doesn't. It's really chill. Like I have friends who are like Dota prodigies. मेरे बहुत अच्छे दोस्त हैं like in Pakistan as well, who to this date can get like the equivalent of Immortal on Valorant, Ascendant, not Immortal, the equivalent of Ascendant on Valorant and Dota, playing like maybe 3 games a day while they're like a full-time doctor and like chill kar rahe hain wo aaram se, right? Like you know, not anymore, but the guy used to be like blazed out of his mind is playing the most relaxed Dota, just doing unoptimal shit and then still being like Ascendant level. Like you can be very high level. Aisi baat nahi hai. There's nothing APM, ridiculously APM intensive there.
So like tell about your career like overall in CS commentating, like how, like we've talked about how you got into the ESL, like what kind of gigs have you done, and are there any local gigs that you've done especially?
I've only done 2 local gigs. I don't work locally. The local gigs I've done at the Dew Gamers Arenas of 2018 and 2019, which were the best esports events that have ever happened in Pakistan. You guys are in Lahore. I don't know if you guys ever attended them, but if you didn't, you missed out. It's gonna happen again this year, so you should
book this on your calendars, viewers. 2023 or 2024.
End of this year.
End of this year.
I don't know what the date is yet, but it's gonna be end of this year. It should be, the date will be announced in like 2 weeks or something. It's fine. It's gonna have this year. It'll have Tekken, Dota, FIFA, PUBG, I think. So yeah.
I mean,
I'm not in Pakistan, so but I can send an A.
I mean, listen, I saw that Dartmouth invitation on the Zoom link. I'm like, acha, yahan koi akalmand bhi aaya hai.
That's true. So like you've done 2 local gigs. Like what kind of external gigs have you done like out of the country?
Okay, so I've done everything that there is to do online. Which is to say everything that's from home. I've done everything, right? So I have. God, this is a weird question. I mean, I don't really know exactly how to answer it, but like put it this way: that I've also anything there's to do online, I've done it, right? So be it like a couple tournaments worth a couple $100,000 and everything. That's very common in Counter-Strike. I've done that probably. It's not that impressive. So I know it sounds like maine sab kuch kiya bhai. Online ho jata hai. It's in esports for viewers. There are online events and then there are in-person events.
LAN events.
LAN events like kaun sa mushkil hai. I have been invited to LAN events for the past few years. I have had significant visa issues because of which I've not been able to go to a lot of them. Last year, I missed out on 4 events. Over the past 4 or 5 years, I've missed out on a lot of LAN events, which I would have been invited to. This year was the first time I actually made it to one. And, alhamdulillah, this year has been good to me. So this year, I covered the Asian leg of the World Championship of Counter-Strike in Mongolia, which was a very cool experience. It was my first ever LAN event internationally. It was really fun, really nice to be there. I then did the Asian Championship that was being held in Saudi Arabia, which was basically, it's this gimmicky tournament event. Oh, nice cat, dude. It's a gimmicky tournament that's like a national invite-based tournament. A Pakistani team went there as well, interestingly enough. But wahan mein kya tha, and then called IESF Asian Championship, and then I have another event coming up at the end of this month, which I cannot disclose.
No issues.
But
okay, is that also in person?
It'll be. Yeah. No. I mean, daily online events mein sare hote hain, right? Like next week I'm on air for 7 days. Tomorrow I'm on air. I think this month I have about 18 broadcast days, something like that, right? Like wo to hota rehta hai. But in person is sort of. And to be honest, online I am a veteran at this point. Online is whatever. I get excited for events and matchups, yes, but it's still like it's just a day job thing at this point. Which is like cool.
So does it act like the equivalent of a freelance gig?
Yes, I'm an independent contractor. Okay, yes, cool. I'm an independent contractor to everyone.
So like once you've been to a few tournaments abroad, is it easier to get your visa or is it still a toss-up?
यार मसला ये है कि काउंटर स्ट्राइक इज अ वेरी यूरोपियन ई-स्पोर्ट, ठीक है, तो शेंजन वाले लोग कुत्ते के बच्चे होते हैं। तो मैंने ये उर्दू में इसलिए कहा है ताकि इंग्लिश में ना
हाई लेवल स्कीमिंग यहाँ पे चल रही है।
हाँ मैं बता रहा हूँ ना, मैं बड़े अरसे से काम कर रहा हूँ। But no, yeah, Shenzhen visas are very hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially because for example, my event is in Sweden this month. In order to apply there, and people can figure out, just to bleed out that country, people can figure out what country this is very easily for the rest of the story. It's fine. But they have closed down embassy operations in Pakistan.
Yeah.
So I had to go to Thailand and apply in Thailand for my visa there.
And isn't it even harder to get a visa if you're applying from a country that's not here?
Halva.
Okay.
Any country that's not Europe, it's not an issue at all. Because European issue is not that I get rejected. It's that I don't get an appointment.
Yeah, you get put
I
on
do
long
not get rejected for
stuff,
visas.
Yeah.
No, you don't even get a wait list. If you try to get an appointment for half of the European embassies, it is impossible.
It is
literally impossible. मैं हंगरी की एक साल से हर रोज बैठ के I've been looking for something called a digital nomad visa, which is basically like it's a remote living visa. So I thought कि यार मैं एक साल का पकड़ लूंगा, like you guys said, थोड़ी आसानी हो जाएगी यार, एक साल में जितने events वाला करना है ठीक है,
you can cover them.
आ जाऊंगा ना, यार थोड़ा सा महंगा होता है यार, but you know what, like it's an investment into my future, and alhamdulillah, I do well enough that I can cover that. So I was going to apply for that. मेरे एक साल से मैं वीजा अपॉइंटमेंट उसके लिए नेगोशिएट कर रहा हूँ, मुझे एक बार भी नहीं दिया है, right? And this includes things like, the only one time I've seen it like on my screen, which is why I know it's possible, is I was logging in onto their website for like 3 weeks straight at 3 a.m. in the morning, which is when I was told is when like the visa process is refreshed.
Yeah.
And us waqt for like a split second, I had an option to click on it. The second I clicked on it, the website crashed for me.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Because that's how quick these appointments go.
Like that's the problem with a lot of Pakistani things, is that like just getting a visa is like the biggest issue that like all of esports is facing in Pakistan especially.
But like we have a lot of colleagues who go to conferences in Europe, and again, one of the biggest problems is that it's impossible to find a date for an appointment. So what my friend did was he was supposed to go to Spain, but he got an appointment for another country.
Yes, I understand. हरकतें हो सकती हैं, but here's the issue is that हरकतों पे नहीं accept होगा मेरा visa, because I am an independent contractor. मेरा business invite आया हुआ, मेरा हो जाएगा. अगर मेरा बहुत ही valid reason है, मुझे कोई मना नहीं करेगा. Right, like I pay my taxes, I do everything, I'm a legal citizen. I've dotted my I's and crossed my T's. But that being said, if I'm applying as a tourist, वो नहीं होने वाला.
Okay.
Right, so that is where I do get rejected. Theoretically, if I had tried that, but I haven't, because it's illegal by the European Union. Keep this in mind.
Allegedly.
This at home.
Because you are
allegedly,
working,
if I had tried. Allegedly, if I had tried it.
Yeah, because you're working, so it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's no like letter of employment from my letter from my employer saying कि यार ये बंदा वापस आएगा यार, ये मेरा boy है, मैं इसको पैसे देता हूँ, ये जिंदगी नहीं जी सकता मेरे वैसे में. Right, so it's different. So it's harder for me to do that, frankly. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, if I get like 3 or 4 engines, so it does become easier. But वही बात है, at the end of the day, उन 3 तक पहुंचना भी मुश्किल है.
Yeah.
So engines don't care about whether I have like a US visa or an English visa or anything like ये बड़े visa होते हैं, उनको नहीं फर्क पड़ता. उनको सिर्फ अपनी से ताल्लुक है. So yeah, it's whatever.
So like one thing I also wanted to get into, like you mentioned before that the Gamers Tourney had like a couple of games on its roster, like Dota, Tekken, PUBG, and I think there was one more.
The New Gamers tournament.
Yeah, the New Gamers tournament.
I think they're calling that Dew Domination League or something this time. I don't know.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, why is CS and Valo not on this roster?
Yeah, straightforward reason. I'm trying to think, should I be diplomatic about this? Fuck it, it's okay. I've burnt enough bridges. Yeah, so Valorant is a dead game.
Yeah.
Right, in Pakistan, it is just a dead game. It was always a dead game. It was dead on arrival. It was a stillborn game. Valorant was treated like a tier 1 esport, and a lot of money was put into it from different people. I was also consulting with projects, and I also made the decision to do Valorant tournaments.
Yeah.
Right, so just all my cards on the table, I have made that decision. Valorant का शुरू से मसला ये था. So there are 2 types of esports, and this is the biggest differentiation that people in Pakistan, when I'm talking to policymakers in Pakistan about these things, this is the biggest thing. Like, this is everything.
Yeah.
The two types of esports are developer-run esports and independently run esports. Developer-run esports are like Valorant.
Yeah.
Riot Games creates a circuit internationally. वो सारे circuit उनका है. They are the ones who will own the biggest intellectual properties. They are the ones who will have exclusive rights towards those international circuits. Non-developer runs, independent run esports are like Counter-Strike, where developers will do the world championship, but beyond that, they will do nothing else.
Tourneys are usually like independently formed and everything is on its own.
So they have their own profit incentives. They have their own profitability metrics, which are never met. But they have their own sort of business model. But as far as the game, so in Pakistan, the only esports that have taken off since 2019, I think 19, are developer-run esports.
Yeah.
Because developers have seen that Pakistan has a big market of gamers, and they are willing to put marketing budget into that. For independently run esports, you need people like you or me to go out and take risks, form companies, do business development, do all of that stuff, be creative, to be very frank, care about viewership, care about metrics. These guys don't need to do that because इन लोगों को नहीं फर्क पड़ता कि अगर हमारी व्यूअरशिप आ रही है या नहीं आ रही है. इन लोगों को फर्क पड़ता है हमारा प्लेयर बेस आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है, because their money is being made from the people playing the game, not the people watching the tournament. Our money, if we try to do this, is made from people watching the tournament, which there are none. So Valorant esports was never going to be sustainable in Pakistan, and it was never going to be a thing in Pakistan for two reasons. So one, if a company cannot have the biggest tournament, and I do not speak for Pepsi, by the way, I've worked extensively with Pepsi, I've worked extensively with Red Bull, I've worked extensively with a lot of major brands. I do not speak for them. I will not speak to their strategy. What I am saying right now is my own personal opinion. When brands like these, the big ones, they want to get into a title, they want to have the biggest IP possible.
Yeah.
Right? So, because it's cheap. Right, so we ran the company I was consulting with. We ran the biggest Pakistani tournament for Valorant up till that point, and it just cost us about 40 lakh. I'm off of my India, I can say this, and 40 lakh was a disaster, by the way. हम आराम से 20-25 में कर सकते थे. So and this includes 8.5 lakh of prize money.
Yeah.
Right. So it's cheap to run the best event, or at least to run the competitively best event for something that is going to have a theoretically high cultural impact compared to, for example, cricket or traditional sports.
Yeah.
Right. So as a marketing tool, it's very cheap for these big brands who want exposure and nothing else. Now, if you can't run the biggest event, right? So because people didn't actually care about our event, even though it was 8.5 lakh of prize money, which was at that point for a PC game, that was the second biggest prize money that had ever been offered in a Pakistani esport in the past, well, at least in the past 8 years. I wouldn't say ever, though, but wo alag baat hai. So despite that, we were not able to generate interest because we were not the biggest event, because Riot has to have the biggest event, because you have to get express permission from Riot to hold your event.
Yeah.
If you are having an event that is larger than a particular amount size, they will veto it, or they will impose restrictions which make it so that it's very difficult and honestly unfeasible for you to hold your event. Although this is not something they openly admit, that is not the purpose of the guidelines, that is a function that it ends up serving.
So they're like going Nintendo on your ass kind of scene. Like they're like micromanaging a lot
Nintendo
of
बहुत
things.
extreme है. Nintendo बहुत extreme है. But it's still hard to be the biggest, is the point. Because the second you have to go through the bureaucracy of a company that's obviously massive like Riot, it's just hard, right? And it's a pain in the ass. And then like you're dealing with, like, let's say for example, I get Pepsi as a sponsor, right? So Pepsi की bureaucracy के साथ मुझे अलग नाचना है, मुझे फिर अलग Riot की bureaucracy के पीछे नाचना है, dates का, it's just a pain. The other thing is that for Riot is that they made it so you cannot hold international tournaments. This kills anything. To be honest, like national tournaments do not exist. Like they are useless. Yeah. National tournaments are the biggest waste of time for anyone in any esport ever, except for PUBG. And wo bhi, in my opinion, that is, like I said, that's a very propped up esport, and that is also, sort of feeling the burn of that now. So when you can't hold an international event, that means कि आप इंडियन टीम्स के खिलाफ नहीं कर सकते, आप मिडिल ईस्टर्न टीम्स के खिलाफ नहीं कर सकते, आप डोमेस्टिक टीम्स के खिलाफ कितना ही कुछ करेंगे यार. हमेशा एक टीम बहुत अच्छी होती है, दूसरी टीम थोड़ी सी कंपेरेटिव होती है, तीसरी चौथी पांचवी छठी बेकार होती हैं. I've gotten into so much trouble online saying that, oh, these guys are just dog shit and they're never going to be relevant competitively, and then they're not. Right? Like, unfortunately, this is how national scenes work.
Yeah.
So Valorant was never going to succeed because Riot only had to put in enough money to get people away from Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Because that was a real competitor. There's no Overwatch in Pakistan, not to a substantial level. So when that was done, so TK, why put in more money, right? For the games developer, why put in more money? Then the other issue that happens is, and I'm sure you guys know about this, but maybe the viewers don't. To the viewers at home, for these international circuits, Pakistan has a qualification slot. But masla ye hai ki now we share the qualification slot with India.
Yeah.
So when Corona finished, India ke andar sare land ke upar aane lag gaye. And as everyone knows, you cannot get a visa to go to India. So now Pakistan simply cannot compete internationally. It is not possible to even have the idea of a Cinderella run. So if I'm like, let's say, if I'm like a secondary party, right? I'm maybe like a media company, I'm a documentary company, I'm something like that who wants to make a documentary and that'll make Valorant blow up in Pakistan because of how cool it is. I can't do that because we'll never have a chance to play internationally. There were appeals made to Riot to request to move us to the Middle East because then we can go to Dubai and compete, but then those appeals were denied. Riot has no interest in associating us with an Arab market because we are a much lower average annual revenue per user market, the ARPU. Anyone who's into marketing will know what that means. If you're not, just Google it. You're on a podcast or on the internet. So because of that, to Riot, it doesn't make sense to associate us with them because for Riot, esports is still very small, right? The game publishing side of things is so profitable that there's no reason to then fuck that up, muddy those waters by bringing esports for this country that has 400 people watching at the best of times.
Yeah.
Right. So Valorant was dead on arrival. Valorant was never going to succeed, in my opinion. I was on the record of saying that Valorant should be an esport in Pakistan, but it needs to be treated like a tier 2 esport. The second it gets treated like a tier 1 esports, it's dead. It can't be like your primary thing. Because that's why Valorant isn't in here. I have not been consulting with Pepsi on this project yet. I probably will later on if I have time and if our things align. But so far I haven't been. But that's probably why Valorant isn't here. The reason why Counter-Strike isn't here is very straightforward, is that Counter-Strike has not had a scene for a few years. And unfortunately, going back to independent developers, independent tournament organizers ke andar koi vision nahi hai. They are clueless and they all think that whatever the current fad is what you have to build on.
Yeah.
So you'll see people trying to do PUBG tournaments. You'll see people who were initially trying to do Valorant tournaments and not realize that if you're trying to build a company over 3 to 5 years, and your best bet is to actually go into independent stuff. So, Counter-Strike, which should have investment, is not getting that. Dota 2, which should have had more investment, these are not getting them. Instead, you're seeing people put money into PUBG, which, you know what, I'll say this, PUBG has actually turned out to be profitable for some companies.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to get into like PUBG. Like PUBG
you said it's propped up. What did you mean by that?
Okay, propped up means that all of the money in PUBG has come from Tencent.
Yeah.
Okay, Tencent marketing expenditure kar raha hai. So that means that the money there is not self-sustaining. So the second PUBG stops being a cultural phenomena, Tencent ki marketing expenditure kam hoga, because obviously एक कंपनी का ROI बेस पे वो इसलिए नहीं करते क्योंकि वो आपको खिलौने देके खिलाना चाहते हैं. This is a multi-trillion-dollar company or whatever Tencent is. They're making decisions by the numbers. So PUBG's player base is starting to go down, their viewership is starting to go down, and the second Tencent starts to pull out from this market, or even like sort of hold back a little bit more, you're going to see a massive hit. And internally, I'm talking to certain people, and it seems like that's already coming. Yeah. Right. So budgets are lower. वो सब कुछ करके रखे. That's why I do think PUBG is propped up. The place where it's not propped up is छोटे जो organizers हैं, because PUBG's been so popular. छोटे organizers are still able to get like 5,000-6,000 viewers for a tournament with, let's say, $1 million on the line. You can recoup that money. Yeah. You cannot, however, recoup money for a project that costs $300,000 to $350,000 to run, that Tencent is doing. That is not possible to recoup. So although PUBG has an esport here, it is propped up into being multiple millions of dollars being spent, but those are all coming from the pockets of one company, which has nothing to do with the esport itself. That's why I believe it's a propped up esport. Okay. And then there's a lot of other complications that get into this as well, but yeah.
So overall, like you think that the shift of focus should be towards more like independently hosted tournaments, independently hosted circuits, and like, for example, with Dota and CS, like what other games do you think fall under that umbrella versus like Valorant? Nothing else?
Even Tekken doesn't. Tekken is close. Tekken is better. Tekken is like weird middle ground, because fighting game tournament or like fighting game developers are really fucking weird. Bleep that out, please, because just in case the family member listens to this. But fighting game tournaments are weird because these guys are very internationally, not locally. Locally, फिर भी हमारी community पे actually.
Yeah.
Internationally, these guys are very averse to things becoming an esport. They're like, no, we want to have our grassroots community feeling and everything, which destroys players. It's really bad for players. It's really bad for viewership. It's really bad for esports, for their industry. But Pakistan is actually, because of how many players there are, and because Pakistan is in this really unique situation जहाँ कोई भी साफ सुथरा influencer नहीं है, Arsalan Ash के अलावा, कोई भी साफ सुथरा नहीं है. There is no clean gaming influencer to go after, because they all swear, they're all non-competitors, or they're all even if they're viewed, they're not necessarily viewed as God, what's the thing? Aspirational characters.
Yeah, they're not they're not brandable, or they're not marketable in that sense. They're not brand or advertiser friendly, you could say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if they are, they're not premium.
Yeah.
Is the thing, right? So you have some PUBG YouTubers who might have 500,000 subscribers, but they're not the people just पे मैं देख के कहूँ, yeah, this is aspirational. I look up to this guy. That's, hey, I enjoy this guy's content, right? So Arsalan is the only aspirational halo in all of Pakistani esports. And credit to his team, Cartel PR, shout out to them, Lahore ki company, they've done a great job with that and everything. He's also done obviously a great job, kudos. So Tekken is actually in a place where because if you can get Arsalan to your tournament, and Arsalan would like to be at your tournament because he's a competitor. Arsalan is a real hard and fast competitor. So if your tournament will help him qualify for the Tekken World Tour, he will be there. So you can actually get a big guy.
Yeah.
So that way Tekken, you can actually make some money and whatnot. But Tekken maybe ye issue is, I think, now I haven't read the legalities of this in a while, so I might be wrong about this. Anyone can Google and find out if I'm wrong. I think Tekken also has some guidelines from Bandai Namco. Okay, if you want to be an official Tekken recognized tournament, you cannot make more than a certain amount of money from sponsorships and everything. It's really weird. I don't know why that's a thing, but unki taraf se hai, if you're making more than $50,000, it will not be part of the Tekken circuit. Or if you have any sponsorship value going above this, or the only registration fee you can charge is a registration fee that's supposed to cover expenditures, or badi ajeeb unki requirements, right? They're trying to keep it down, wali baat hai. They don't want it to be a sport. That's what it feels like whenever you're seeing that. Again, so Tekken's a middle ground. There is space for independence, but it is still clearly developer influenced to a large extent. So, yeah.
Would you agree with it that to have a base that watches esports, you need to have influencers, streamers that are premium?
I don't think it matters.
Then how do you?
I don't think it matters.
How do you create interest?
How do you create interest
become your
in a more larger, broader audience? I mean, you get really
honest,
hardcore
your players
people.
Become your influencers. Your players become your influencers. That's all. Right? Cricket जो लोग देखते हैं, let's not use cricket actually, let's use football. Football अभी recently Cambodia को हमने हराया है, great stuff and everything. No one knows any of these players.
Exactly.
But as they keep on playing, if there are companies who are doing a good job, which they will not be because people in sports are stupid and they don't know how to do promotional activity properly. But if there are people who are doing a good job of following individual stories and everything, right? The Otis Khan story is so sad. And to anyone who doesn't know, Otis Khan is a player who was whose grandfather's Indian. I think he was he is Pakistani, but I think he was born in the UK or something. So because his grandfathers are Indian, despite him being Pakistani and having a Pakistani passport, he's not been allowed to play on the Pakistani national team. And Otis is a player who's playing in Division 2 English Premier League football, which is not brilliant world class, but that's really good.
Yeah.
Right. So it would have been really cool. Right. So documentaries like this, you're not going to see that story being told. That's how you get people interested in sports, by good stories, great matchups, repeated events, things like that. And then your players become your influencers, right? Because you look over towards players in Counter-Strike, and Counter-Strike has lower conversion rate for this stuff. But Counter-Strike maybe players, any player that's on a top 20 team is probably going to have unless they're very new, is probably going to have 30 to 50,000 followers on Twitter, Instagram, and then people are just interested in the game after that at some point, right? So then add that to that. Okay, let's say if Dota, not just Counter-Strike, let's talk about Dota. Let's say we send a team abroad to play a tournament abroad, right? Because we did send a Counter-Strike team, we probably would have sent a Dota team too agar kuch logon ne harkatein na ki hoti, right? If you're sending a documentary crew with them, it's so cool to see that story, right? Even if you're not interested in the game. And then when you're talking about it, that's when the conversion happens. Because one of the things that people need to understand is I cannot give you numbers, but I know the numbers. The numbers are 7 figures for people from Pakistan who watch Counter-Strike, Dota, like these big tournaments. Every year, there's 7 figures
That's
of unique
massive,
people who have tuned in. The issue is converting those people into domestic viewers. That is the true problem. For football, for Counter-Strike, for Dota 2, for all of these things.
And you think it's a PR problem of making those players into...
No, it's a PR problem and an intellectual property problem, right? So for football, I think it's a PR problem. For football had other issues as well. Pakistan Football Federation, I'm not an expert. I wouldn't really be the person to comment on that. But, you know, for things like Counter-Strike, we had a team right now qualified to the Asian Championship that I was at as well. They went to Saudi Arabia. They played. They lost to everyone except for Australia. Australia was a top-seeded team. Australia probably should have been the team that maybe even challenged to win the entire tournament. They beat Australia. They destroyed them. No one will ever know the story of those players. No one will ever know that ek banda that basically quit Counter-Strike. The guy went and opened a pizza shop. He was just selling pizzas basically. And the guy, you know, just happened to qualify. फिर इन लोगों ने practice किस तरह की है. इन लोगों के लिए कोई support नहीं था. इन लोगों को क्योंकि उसको जाके अपनी पिज्जा की दुकान चलानी थी, सुबह के 8 से 12 बजे तक प्रैक्टिस करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे. उसमें भी then it's just like, okay, well, we are trying to practice, but we don't really believe that we can do anything. And then the realization of when they actually went and played the Australians and actually like destroyed them, the realization of like, holy shit, we've been wasting our time. We could have actually been doing something. All of this stuff, like if you've got a good compelling storyteller, that's insane. That's a really fun story to watch. And again, I'm not talking about yari banda, he also moves the mouse really fast. Yari banda haath aise hilata. Yari banda iska first bullet accuracy khoobsurat nahi. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you a human interest story.
Like more surrounding, like
interested.
There's like you could say like there's less infrastructure surrounding like understanding who these people are versus like chalo theek hai yaar iski game skill ye itni achhi hai wo achhi hai. Like there's like a less human element, you could say, that's not being covered.
Yes, it's about selling at the end of the day, right? And then you can't sell the fact, yeah, I'm watching these guys play and I can tell you 100 things they're doing wrong, right? I'm not like, okay, I'm an international expert, right? I'll say that, but I'm not like world class at coaching or something. I've done some coaching. I've coached some teams that have, you know, made it to the Asian leg of the World Championships and everything. Like I'm good, but I'm not that good. Right. So anyone who's watching who has like any sort of like tenure of watching will probably know they're not that good. But you don't want them to watch because they're good. You want them to watch because they're interesting, because they're relatable, because you want to root for them. Right. And unfortunately, that's something that's been really badly handled. Every single opportunity that there has been by corporations, by documentaries, by everyone, like it's just bad. Unfortunately, it's just badly done.
Yeah, I mean, like this is like a problem that like when we talked with Noshirwan Bhai and like Captain Silver Fox.
Who is Noshirwan? Sorry,
Captain Silver Fox. Yeah. When we talked with him, he was also saying that there's like all of these stories that are hidden behind like so many layers of like obstruction, you could say. These stories never come to light. Like there are challenges, they're like, I guess, surmounting like difficulties. Like these kind of stories don't actually come to light, and that's why you don't form that kind of personal attachment to the players. And then you could say like, theek hai yaar, the guy plays good, but like I have no idea who this dude is at the end of the day.
Like just on a similar point, you know, because you brought up Silver Fox. Yeah, Tekken mein Arsalan ke alawa kisi ko no one knows anyone.
Yeah.
Atif has won the Tekken World Tour. I think Bilal won Evo or something like that as well. Even jab ye log Gamers 8 abhi pichle chand mahine pehle they won against Korea. I'm pretty sure Bilal was like the best player there from what I remember. Right? Like these are stories that haven't been told, unfortunately. Right? So you're not going to get viewership. Why would any streamers don't help, by the way. You know how much viewership we got for New Gamers in 2018, despite the fact that मैं बताता हूँ हमारी influencer list में कौन था, मुझे याद करना. Hania Amir थी, we had like legit celebrities.
Yeah.
And we had TV commercials running and everything, वो सब कुछ करा के, right? Like, and that was cool, right? And as someone who's like, that was my first time in such a sort of environment, you know, Pakistan में बड़ा tournament हो रहा है, 3-4 लोग audience में खड़े हुए हैं, right? वो audience में इसलिए आते हैं concert हो रहा है, but you know, online the viewership was not that great. It was 3,000, 4,000 people, maybe 5,000, which is okay, but that's fine. That's whatever, right? They made their money off of advertising elsewhere. They didn't make their money off of, you know, their viewership. They also didn't turn that story into something else. There was no aspirational element beyond the gamers arena itself, things like that, right? So again, even though I think Gamers Arena is my favorite event ever, it's one of the, like, I think Gamers Arena is one of the big reasons why I am in esports, because it's so much fun. But it was a badly done event as far as storytelling is concerned. Right? Like, it's just true. I don't think there's ever been an event in Pakistan where the stories have been told well.
How would you go about trying to address this public face problem that like esports is kind of facing? Like, there's like a disconnect between we have international audiences, we have a local audience that's present, but I don't think they ever find out about like what's going on, or like there's like, I think, a marketing dearth that's present here that's not being filled.
Even if they find out, why would they care?
That's true, yeah.
That's the question. Na? Like, football हमारे यहाँ होती तो है, leagues होती तो हैं.
हाँ.
मैं क्यों देखूं? मैं जब ला लीगा जाके देख सकता हूँ. Facebook ने अपनी जब खरीदी हुई थी, I've never watched football in my life. By the way, I think football is a boring ass sport. I love the live aspect of it. I love going to the stadium to watch things and everything. बहुत मजा आता है. I went to the Pakistan Cambodia match. It was amazing. I'm going to go to the Pakistan Tajikistan match. You know, I went to the World Cup and everything. I'll watch like the World Cup finals and whatnot as well. But beyond that, if I wanted to watch football, I could have watched football on Facebook, because Facebook had bought the streaming rights to La Liga for South Asia. And, you know, I could just watch it there. मैं क्यों जाके अपनी वापटा एफसी को देखूं playing up against, you know, the Kamal Laboratories football team as well. मैं क्यों देखूंगा मैं, right? But if I know Otis Khan is playing in one of them, if I know Otis Khan ka yaar, you know what, like this guy's the guy with the killer story, or if I know that, oh, you know, let's say off the top of my head, a lot of the players in the national team are overseas Pakistanis. You think any of these guys are happy about that? Like, frankly speaking, the people who are playing in Pakistan, Liari FC में खेलने, मैं ख्याल है ये लोग खुश होंगे कि यार ये overseas Pakistanis को लाके खिला रहे हैं. No,
that's true, huh?
You know what? I want to see a documentary from their perspective, being like, hey man, like the bitterness of seeing Pakistan succeed, but knowing you weren't the one to be there, right? I want to see that. I want to hear how much they hate the fact that they hate the success, right? The internal turmoil that exists because you want this team to succeed. You are associated with that identity, but you want it to be that identity. Right? That's a killer story. And that's just, like, again, random off the top of my head. I will never see that story. I will never see it.
Why is that? Do we not have good storytellers?
We don't have good storytellers. We don't have good writers in this country. We don't have good directors in this country. The good directors in this country like sit down and they do small projects and whatever, and they're like they'll go do projects for UNICEF and like this and that and development work, because that's where the money is easy to get. You know, कहाँ से पैसे आएंगे यार? Right? These people are then not able to get in touch with your Pepsis of the world. These people are not able to get in touch with like your tamashas of the world and whatnot. इनको नहीं पता होता. इनको लगता है कि यार हम जाएंगे executive हमें उड़ा देगा. I tell you from personal experience, I have pitched leagues for esports back when I didn't know as much about the business side. Now I'm really well informed about the business side of esports, right? But मैंने pitch की थी, and this is what I sold to people. मैंने कहा अच्छा मुझे पता नहीं impressions आपके कितने आएंगे. I don't really know viewership आपकी क्या आएगी. Honestly, मुझे नहीं पता. I can just tell you कि इतने media pieces होंगे. This is the story we're going to tell. I had gotten agreements from international tournament organizers to feature Pakistani teams in them if they won our tournament, right?
Yeah.
And that's crazy cool.
I mean,
but
that's
I'm
massive.
not able
like,
to sell.
Getting onto an international stage just from like a small national level tournament.
Yes,
like
exactly. And that was all because I am very well connected, right? I can get this stuff done, but I didn't know that उन लोगों के पास जाऊंगा, so that manager is going to get fired if he doesn't break 100 million impressions from this project. I don't know that. Now I do, but now I don't. But now I'm not like. Frankly, I'm married. I have a life. I am focusing on my art and everything, right? Like now I'm not going to be going out and trying to create a company from scratch all alone.
Yeah.
You know, so it's different things. So unfortunately, I don't think those stories were told, and I don't think those stories will be told. But yeah, क्या करें? Let's see.
So like,
they will be eventually. Actually,
yeah, they will
I'm
eventually.
Optimistic.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, like I'm optimistic as well, because like I've seen the numbers of like the amount of money that's coming in from esports in Pakistan, and like it's going in a northward direction.
Where are you getting this from? What money is this, and why do I not know of it? Please मुझे बताएं आपके.
Tournament winnings, is that what you're counting?
Other than tournament winnings, like there is investment that is going on.
क्या पैसे आ रहे हैं? नहीं आप please मुझे बताएं क्या पैसे आ रहे हैं. I will not let this ridiculous statement stand unchallenged. Oh, there's money coming into Pakistan. What money is coming in? Please tell me.
It was in the same vein that you said before, like, you know, how Tencent is pushing money into Pakistan to, like, you know, keep it maintained. And now that you've kind of informed me that, like, you know, there's decisions about it going the other direction. So, like, that kind of like put a damper on things. But, like,
listen,
there is a lot of potential that I see here. Like,
Tencent gives money to agencies.
Yeah.
Okay, Tencent doesn't give money to anyone who's going to develop anything.
Yeah.
This is the issue. Tencent gives money, let's say, to, I will not name agencies because that'll get me in trouble. Let's say Tencent gives money to Q&A.
Yeah.
Right. And they tell Q&A, you know what, yaar, we want you to run an event. We're going to give you $300,000 to do it. Right. This event should be a LAN finals. This event should be like breaking this, and this. Okay, cool. All right. You go and you do it. You have gotten your money. You are now waiting for the next project from Tencent. You are not creating something new.
Yeah.
You are not investing into the future. You are not doing anything. Agencies are leeches.
Yeah, it's like very short-sighted gains. Like they've earned their bag. Like, what point do they have of setting up a
money? Why would they not go to the next one?
Yeah.
Right. So they'll go to the next one. You know what? Maybe Tencent isn't there. Whatever, man. Like, it's fine. I'm gonna go to do like this other execution event where they need people to set up a stall and like set up a festival. Cool, theek hai, main kar liya. Agencies are leeches.
Yeah.
Right? Agencies do not create. Agencies suck, and then they distribute. And they do serve a purpose. Agencies are really great outside of esports. I love working with non-esports agencies. They're so much fun because they're specialized. Esports agencies are leeches. They do not create anything new.
So how would you go about kind of remedying this problem? Like, would you say like handing that money directly to like content creators or like directly to like...
No, that's a waste of time. Content creators ko to kuch pata hi nahi hota bhai. Content creators are really... Listen, tournament organizers need to be incentivized to create their own properties. That's it. Right? So for Tencent, it's a pain in the ass. This is the thing. The problem is this money is never going to come from Tencent because Tencent does not want to go through the hassle of endorsing people who are now going to legally represent them to some extent in their own intellectual property. It is not worth their time. Tencent does not care if Pakistani esports succeeds or fails on a macro level. They just want their game to make money, and that's fine. Right? But these agencies, they're going to run out and then they're going to realize that they've missed that golden goose. They've missed the time. And you know what? If I have a $300,000 project coming in, what if I take 30K off the top of it and I actually put that into my own projects and whatnot? They've missed that. They're all missing that. That's why I'm seeing these agencies, they're starting to wind down. Now, one of them, I'll give them a shout out because they've made some good hires and I do have some optimism about them. Hyped Esports.
Yeah.
Right. So Hyped Esports, it's a very new agency. इन लोगों ने जाके अपनी influencer management वगैरह बहुत अच्छी करने लगे, right? So they've started to really take over on that, and they're starting to make like a proper influencer management network. And from there, if they have money and whatnot coming in, I'm sure because I know these guys, I'm sure these guys will eventually figure out, okay, we need to start building for the future. Yeah. Because we do not have that security. Like we don't have the security. If esports fails for us, we can just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm hopeful, but. Yeah, the money that's coming in isn't going into the industry like that. It's not going to teams. It's not going to players. ठीक है, prize money aa rahi hai, and ठीक है, like Arsalan's getting sponsorships, and a couple of players are getting like organizations, signing them. But there's not there isn't that monolithic movement of capital that you might be expecting when you see these events, because there's a lot of money being put in, but there's not a lot of money that's being taken forward, and like trickle down economics doesn't work, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you're talking on our podcast, trickle down economics obviously does not work, but like
so it's like it's more of a marketing push than developing an indigenous scene.
नहीं, indigenous तो नहीं है. Indigenous वो लोग करते हैं, जिस तरह मैं बताता हूँ. Indigenous करते हैं Pepsi, indigenous करते हैं Red Bull, indigenous करते हैं, but उनकी भी you see how big these brands are that I'm talking about. The reason why they can do this is because for Pepsi, and again, I do not speak as someone with insider knowledge of Pepsi. Everything I say is speculation based on what I have seen. If I do have insider knowledge, I will not be discussing that. Just covering my legal basis.
Yeah.
For Pepsi, they are now putting up a prize money of ₹1 crore for this due domination league that they're doing. ठीक है? उसके अलावा उनकी probably, I would estimate कि इनकी logistics की cost जो आएगी is probably going to be roughly $210,000. 210 to 250,000 is what I'm expecting, because PUBG is very expensive. If not for PUBG, they could have probably done the logistics cost in like 100K. But that's what I would roughly expect. So let's say उनके लग गए 3 लाख, ठीक है? 3 लाख इनके लग गए. Pepsi जितनी ज्यादा पैसे खर्च करती है on their marketing, that's a write-off. Because then the idea is the rest of their marketing that they're putting around this campaign, so all of the Instagram ads for this campaign, all of the YouTube ads for this campaign, all of the requests for registration, all of these, that makes their other impressions more valuable. This $300,000 that they spent is to make the impressions of $4 million more valuable, because now it's associative.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's associated to your favorite games, to your favorite hobby.
Yeah, that's why you saw this is the way I think you saw a while back how Dew was very heavily invested into the esports scene, and also everything in Pakistan. With Pepsi, I think also had a couple of sponsorship spots and a couple
Dew
of
is owned by Pepsi, so I'm.
Yeah, technically, I was just saying there's a Dew has a gamer connotation already to begin with, and they're leaning into it.
Of course. I mean, that is literally... So for Dew, their marketing is now just more impactful. Right? So that's what they're spending the $300,000 on. They're not spending it on oh, hey, humne iske upar paise banane hain.
Yeah.
They're just making that 5 million worth it for themselves, right? So when you look over towards endemic companies, here's the issues in Pakistan: import ban hai. Hamare Nvidia will not be able to send as many graphics cards than as they would like to. Your Steel series, it will not be able to send in. So Steel series will not have an official company set up over here. Nvidia will not have an official company set up over here. There are Indian tournaments which are shams, in all fairness, but there are Indian tournaments which are sponsored by Windows 11, by AMD, by this, by that, by Intel, because they have offices domestically. Hamari jab wo offices domestically exist hi nahi karte, there is no reason to have a marketing budget allocated to Pakistan. Right? So the chote level pe events jahan se normally shuru hote hain, the grassroots level is immediately burnt off. We've got scorched earth, and then we've got hovercrafts above it, and the hovercrafts are super expensive and really cool. But if you want to grow anything in that earth, good fucking luck, right? That's the problem. So it's a very complicated macroeconomic problem that actually gets into it. There are ways around it. There are good things as well. The good thing is we are living in a country with pata nahi kitni hamari youth population hai. Sare वक्त politicians कह रहे होते हैं
64% हम लोग बैठते हैं.
हाँ जी, वाह माशाल्लाह, क्योंकि हमारे बेचारे बूढ़े लोग जिंदा नहीं रह पाते ना. नहीं यार, ऐसी बात नहीं है. हमारे बहुत बूढ़े लोग हैं. They talk too much about esports. But नहीं. Sorry. So the thing is, we do not have entertainment products for them, though, right? Because we're not a very sport-heavy nation outside of cricket. We're not a very creative nation, because cinema bans आया कि वक्त ये ban हुआ, वो ban हुआ, right? So हमारी entertainment industry इतनी fleshed out नहीं है. So there's actually more room to grow than you might expect. But unfortunately, that also then needs to be compounded with the fact that you no longer have any of the traditional routes available for financing, which is basic sponsorships from endemic companies, right? So now you've got a field that has a lot of potential to grow, but none of the initial fertilizer, so to speak, that you would go with, right? So it's very interesting. It's a very fun problem to think of it. If both of you went to LUMS or wherever else, LUMS and whatnot. So, I'm sure you guys have done the McKinsey case studies at some point, thinking, hamara bhi McKinsey mein hoga. Sorry guys, but
I'm a physicist, so I'm opposite.
Oh, okay, lovely.
And I'm a doctor, so
in all fairness, McKinsey is very famous. McKinsey is very famous for all of their pharmaceutical endeavors, right? You might be more relevant to that than you think. Random economic jargon aside, it's a very interesting
problem. You have a very chicken and egg kind of situation. You need the initial capital to start up the pump and prime the pump, but the pump can't be primed without the initial capital, and then the initial capital won't come because the pump's not primed. So
and even if you get the initial capital, it is mostly spent incorrectly. Right, so that's where now you're coming into, because I'll build on it. Right, so if you're looking over towards one of the companies that sort of invested pretty heavily into the Pakistani space, right? It's I'd rather not say their name. But it's this company that it's a Middle Eastern company. It invested a lot into the space. They value themselves at about $1.5 billion last I checked a couple of years ago. And I think they did an event in Islamabad in let's say 2020.
Oh, I think you're talking about Galaxy Racer, right?
Can't comment, but theoretically I might be. Right. So these guys they came in and they put a lot of money into well, okay, fine. That is who I'm talking about. But these guys came. They obviously put to the viewers. They put in a lot of money into a big tournament, right? A really big one. And big tournaments don't work. This is what these guys don't understand. Big tournaments are a waste of time and money because there isn't enough activation to warrant things like that, right? So there's no reason to put in $500,000 into Pakistan yet, unless it is something new. Once upon a time, putting in that much money and then bringing a prize pool and everything made it so you would have a relevant cultural impact. And it's no longer culturally impactful to have prize monies of like 1 crore or 2 crore. It's just not interesting. ठीक है, players को मिल जाएंगे, अच्छी बात है, 1-2 headlines आ जाएंगे, अच्छी बात है, fit है. But like the cultural impact stuff would be if now you're sending these players abroad to play, right? Like what we managed to theoretically do before our sponsorship deals didn't really pan out. If you're bringing in teams from abroad into Pakistan, right? Like things like this, something new, something interesting, something where the story is sexy. It isn't sexy anymore to have 1 crore on the line. PUBG's done that too many times.
So doesn't the question come up again? Like, creating entertaining content and creating these stories, aren't content creators kind of in that direction?
Content creators ko kya pata yaar?
Like have a content creator, having a content creator who is active in the space.
Okay, first of all, there is no such thing.
Yeah.
Right? Content creators are inherently for national communities, other than certain very specific ones abroad, they are always bigger than the community is, unless the community was there first, right? So for example, if Counter-Strike is massive in Brazil and then the streamer Gaules, who's probably one of the biggest streamers in the world, then he comes up into Counter-Strike and then he expands to match the community size, that's different. But in Pakistan, if the community is smaller than the streamer already is, or like the content creator already is, then he's not a part of the community. Inherently, he's just not. Right? Like Jay Plays is the first person who I know from Pakistan who's gotten a kick contract for streaming. He started off on PUBG, but everyone knows him for GTA roleplay because he's become bigger than PUBG. His viewership is
he's kind of become like a big fish in a small pond, and he's moved on to bigger waters.
And then he just hopped out. Right. So ek to wo baat. Dusri cheez hai, content creators are inherently they're not storytellers in Pakistan or in most places. This is not a Pakistan issue in general. YouTube, TikTok,
derivative content hota hai na?
Derivative content hota hai, exactly. Right? It's react content. It's like, oh, I'm streaming and my personality is funny, or like I'm charismatic, or this and that. What I'm talking about is effectively like writing.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you want a more concerted and focused effort, you could say. That's focusing more on the smaller scenes.
So this is like telling a story. Content creators don't tell a story. They have some story building principles and everything. Like, I'm not going to take away from them. They do a lot of hard work. But most content creators who are in gaming, they're playing a game that they're either really good at or they're funny at. Right, they'll have funny reactions or they'll be sexist, and that does very well in the community, right? So इस तरह की चीजें हो जाती हैं, and then okay, cool. अब आगे क्या? अब मुझे बताओ, the biggest content creator that I remember being involved in Valorant was this. यार मुझे इस बंदे का नाम actually नहीं आता, मुझे बहुत बुरा लगता था. I would have loved to call him out, but वो उसका YouTube पे जो content हुआ करता था was something like, oh, I went into an Indian Zoom call and I was playing Valorant while I was in class. Just like, is this guy gonna tell me the stories of like one of the documentary pieces that I really wanted to do at one point when I still cared was the greatest losers of all time. Because there's a player who has literally lost 73 finals.
Good God.
That's insane. Right? In Valorant, there was a team that lost 19 finals with only one central piece that was their captain. Right?
Good God.
Even the teams that won, there's a player who's probably the winningest player in domestically, Trans, and uske saath ek aur hai Haseeb HSP. You might know Haseeb if you guys are Valorant fans. But Haseeb jitna bhi jeeta ho, when he went internationally, these guys went to a very big tournament in Counter-Strike in 2017. I think they played 5 games, and every single one of them, they were on match point. They would have won. They lost 8 or 9 rounds in a row, and then they lost in overtime.
Yeah.
Every single one of these, right? Like the greatest losers of all time. That's a cool, like, sort of set of stories.
I mean, it's a cool story from that angle. Yeah, you're not like.
And then every time there's a tournament, you watch to see if they win this time or lose
exactly,
another
right?
one.
And I'm not gonna give that story to someone who's getting 100,000 viewers. Ke, maine Zoom call ke andar churi nikali. Right? Like that's not. Content creators are not going to be able to do this. They're not telling the story.
So, like, who do you think, like, where do you think that, like, this entity, like, this mysterious entity that you're speaking of should come in? Like, where should they come in, and where should they kind of bolster the community to fix it up?
Look, it's not their job to fix a community.
Yeah.
Come in if you want to tell a story. Come tell the story. Make it a cool story. Sell the story. That's it. Do it if you want to. There's no obligation on anyone to bring esports up in Pakistan. Esports in Pakistan will eventually go somewhere. It will eventually grow. And I would love it if people who are more competent come in. I would really enjoy that. But there's a reason why I barely work in Pakistan beyond consultation for companies. The reason why I work for companies, by the way, is that they don't get scammed.
Yeah.
I don't like well, actually I like consulting, but I don't like to build on my consulting career. Consulting isn't like my primary form of income or anything. I do it because I don't want people to get scammed, and that's my only contribution to Pakistani esports now, right? Like ठीक है, पीछे कुछ होते हैं, right? Like so players are going through visa issues, paperwork में मदद कर दी, legalities में मदद कर दी. Everyone has reached out to me at some point to ask me to look over a contract, right?
Yeah.
So like I do that. Yeah. But beyond that, it's just like I'm beyond the point where I'm going to go out there and like go door to door to companies to try and sell them a dream that someone else will be living out, right? If you want to do this, right? Like for example, you guys are content creators. You know what would be great for you? If you went and you did your research, if you went and you talked to people like me, talked to people like Ayana, you found out about some stories, you guys are from Lums and whatnot, yeah, you guys are from HS, and you guys are probably well connected in the corporates. Right? You guys could probably sell a cool story, get a documentary crew along. Hey, you don't know filmmakers? Bata do yaar, I'll hook you up with filmmakers. Right? Like, there you go. There's your solution.
Yeah. I mean, like, not to toot my own horn, but like, I have some like filmmaking and video making experience in that like aspect.
Great,
so,
fantastic.
Like, yeah. I mean,
right?
it is a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting project to take up, but like, you know, at the end of the day, it comes up like, would I be able to do justice to
don't do justice, just have fun. Just have fun and try to make art.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not about doing justice. Like यार ये बहुत ज़्यादा है, ये जो ऊपर से जो terms आती है ना, like doing justice to this idea, telling the story right, it doesn't matter. As long as someone starts to tell the story, as long as you start, like if you like this thing, if you like these things, why aren't you doing them? You want access? You know how easy it is to get access in Pakistan to any of these people? You have my email address at this point. I will give you access to anyone you want.
It's
anyone who wants to tell a story.
Anyone we talk to just connects us to everyone.
Like with all due respect, you have 40 subscribers on YouTube and I said yes to doing this with you.
Exactly.
That's true, yeah.
Right? Like it's everyone wants to come along. We're here because we love what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's true,
it.
yeah.
We love talking to new people about this stuff. I love ranting about कि यार this is a macroeconomic issue. इसको यहाँ से घुमा के देखो तो ये मसला था. यहाँ से घुमा के देखो तो तुम्हारा कान मुड़ जाएगा. Right? Like I like doing this stuff. So similarly, anyone wants to go tell the story, go tell the story. It's fine. Now don't go to someone and tell them अच्छा मुझे सब कुछ बता दो फिर मैं उसके ऊपर कुछ बना लूँगा. Like then you're being a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But you know, do your due diligence, do your basic research, and then if you need to be connected to someone, ask for that connect.
Yeah.
There you go. मसले खत्म.
We wanted to talk about like, you know, having an esports scene that's grown organically, like organically or versus like having an esports scene that's like government sustained. Because you mentioned that there was like a need of monolithic money or like a monolithic amount of capital.
Why would you bring in the government into anything sporting?
Okay,
we have a cricket,
we were kind of warned beforehand. This is like kind of like a trigger topic, but like one like final thought that I just wanted to like get from you was that would you want esports to be formalized through the government or not?
What does that mean?
As in, like, for example, having an esports federation or something like that set up from the government.
Okay, this is not the question. This is not the question. This, with all due respect, I mean, no disrespect to you guys. You guys have been lovely hosts and everything. Right? Like, other than the fact that you got my name wrong twice. What does a federation do? What do you think a federation does?
I mean,
why do you think federations exist in sports in general?
I mean, it's an oversight body that, like, kind of, like, you have mentioned that there's like a lot of problems with money trickling down and like agencies holding on it.
Okay, cool. It's performing oversight.
Yeah.
What does that end up looking like? Does that look like they're going to have to verify every contract? Does that look like they have to force agencies to then take money and then put it into like the grassroots?
I mean, if that's an option, like that, why not?
It's not. Like, on a policy level, do you not understand how absurd that is? Just on a government policy level, telling a private entity that any money you make from another private entity needs to then be siphoned through and put into this industry from your own pockets. This, right? Like, do you understand how ludicrous that sounds?
It sounds insane.
No one's going to invest.
It sounds insane, but like, instead of these agencies being like the middleman, you could have this federation standing in between them, like where they receive money.
And you think the government will do it right? They're being a middleman.
It's possible. It's possible. I'm saying there's a lot of oversight that's needed, guaranteed. Like,
maybe you could help players get the visas.
Okay, I'll tell you something interesting. That, Qasim, I know. That is the only thing the government could help with.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something interesting. We have Pakistani Esports Federation.
Yeah. I looked a bit into it. Like, we do have something. It's ethereal.
They are a false body. I have received confirmation from the government that they are a false body.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Which is to say that they are a body that has been set up and called a federation. They are not legally allowed to be called a federation according to Pakistani law. They are not a federation, but because of the fact that they have federation in their name, and I have heard rumors, this is not confirmed at all. If this was confirmed, this would be on the BBC, BBC Urdu, not BBC Global, because they were interested in the story as well. I have heard, allegedly, that there is someone who had an Olympic Committee email address, and they use that email address to then get themselves verified as, hey, we are the Pakistani Esports Federation with a lot of these global international federations, right? Yeah. And using that, they then got a lot of the invites in, any money that was coming in, and they sort of try to leverage this into putting them where they are. This body has harmed esports more than anyone else has in the history of Pakistan. And that's saying something, because I know some pretty harmful people. I know people who've stolen millions of dollars, right? So, like, this body has probably harmed esports more than even those guys have.
So continue.
Even if this becomes a government body, the issue is, I do not see any reason why it would stop.
Understand?
Why would right? Like, government bodies historically have failed us when it comes to sports. People are put in because it's not important. It's not a voting matter, right? Like, no one cares enough to vote over it. People are put in as favors. People are put in to scratch their back.
Yeah.
So why would I want someone who has no idea about esports to then be now suddenly in charge of all of the money that has to be put in? Forgetting the idea that the legal precedent that would set would be insanity, and that would make no sense in the legal framework of any uncivilized country, let alone a civilized one, right? So wo sab to alag hai. But yeah, no, that's not possible. The government would be great for visa system, I agree. So if we were able to have like negotiations on like athlete sponsorship, and that would be fantastic. That's the only thing that the government can really help with. That being said, the government is actually trying to get more involved. I know this for a fact. I can't really say what they're doing, and what they're doing seems interesting to me, right? So the government could do certain things like building facilities. The government should never, however, be involved in anything to do with esports competition. They should never be involved in any contracts. They should never be involved in anything beyond ease of logistics and trying to make it so more people have access to competitive environments where, for example, if there's a facility that I can go play in, jahan backup power supply, internet acha hai, wo sab kuch hai, PC acha hai, right? That'd be great. Beyond that, the government should be doing nothing at all. What people in Pakistan think that the government will do if they come into esports is they think, yaar, tournaments karwayenge, yaar, players will be paid professionally, paise milenge, sab kuch milenge. This is all false. how a sports federation functions is that a sports federation is useful for only one thing, and is useful for connection to further federations, which is to say that the Pakistan Football Federation is only useful for one thing, that it enables us to play in FIFA guaranteed tournaments.
Yeah.
Right. So the Pakistani football team can then be connected to the FIFA. Similarly for hockey, similarly for basketball, whatever you look at, it is only interesting because it's connected to the Olympic Committee, it's connected to the FIFA organization, it's connected to whatever relevant international federation there is. Okay. Beyond that, there is nothing they offer. There is absolutely nothing. And most of the time, even in this, they screw things up.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely screw things up.
When it comes to esports, there is no international federation. This is the key thing. So what is the government body doing now? When there are only privately owned entities that do not operate under federations, esports is not a national sport, right? Esports, there are clubs that are coming in and playing.
Yeah.
They do not need to be connected to an international federation. So now government is fundamentally useless. So if a government then comes in and the government tries to regulate and do things like, yeah, team Pakistan, they're going to do a bad job of it because they're not going to know what they're doing. But even if they knew what they're doing, why do we need a team Pakistan in the first place?
I mean,
esports isn't built like that.
Like one of the problems that you mentioned before, that we have a stepping gap issue of from national tournaments to the international stage. Wouldn't the esports federation, as you said before, they have contact with other federations, so they could ease that kind of.
There's no international federation.
There is no international federation. There's one that is sort of set up, but that's bullshit, and that's not that's not a real tournament yet.
Yeah.
It's probably going to start being one from next year, from my understanding. And it's got some money on the line, and it's really great for development reasons, right? So I genuinely think that would be a great tournament to start building things around in the ecosystem in the first place. But when it comes to getting connections to private entities, why would the Pakistan Esports Federation be doing that? Why isn't tournament organizer XYZ doing it? Why should the government be the only... why should the government have a monopoly on international invites, which inherently destroys competitiveness? Right? So all of these things are actually really bad. So let's forget Counter-Strike, forget Dota, forget Valorant. Let's look at Tekken.
Yeah.
Tekken mein hamare 4-5 players bahar ja rahe hain, right? They can go to any tournament that they can finance themselves for.
Yeah.
If the government then gets involved, ek to bureaucracy mein sare ke sare wo mare jayenge. Let's say nepotism wala kuch bhi nahi ho raha. There's nothing like that happening. You will not be able to go to as many tournaments. Sure, maybe certain players will go to more because they'll have more money, but you're not going to have your top players being able to go to all the tournaments because then they have to get government approvals and they have to go through government processes. They have to get all of this stuff done. It's going to be a lot harder for them to also then get corporate partnerships, because now if Red Bull, for example, wants to sponsor Arsalan, they don't have to sponsor Arsalan. They have to sponsor the Pakistani Tekken Federation.
Yeah.
Right. So this stuff, this middleman, the governmental middleman in sports is the ultimate scam in all of sports. It's not in esports, it's in all of sports. Pakistani Football Federation का हमने देख लिया ना क्या हुआ, जो सारे takeover हुआ है, सब कुछ हुआ है, FIFA से हम ban हुए हैं कब से. We had our first home match back in Pakistan after God knows how many years for an actual FIFA tournament, not including the 2019 friendly with Afghanistan. What is stopping this from happening in esports? Why do we think esports, which is inherently smaller and ergo there's fewer voting sort of influences in it.
Yeah.
There's fewer economic influences in it. There's less to care about. Why would this not be the fastest thing that gets corrupted?
That's true, yeah. I was just for sake of devil's argument, kind of going against you on this one. But I do side with you on the fact that this should remain in the private sector and we could always manage connections otherwise. But one thing that does come to mind is that Pakistan, as we mentioned before, there's 64% of the population is under 20 or under 25. I'm not sure the exact statistic. Under 30. So there is a voter incentive in that direction, you could say. I mean, young people are into esports, are into gaming. So you could having that on the ballot, formalizing a proper federation could somehow get votes.
I have a question. What is more impactful, economics or this?
That's true, economics overall, yeah. I mean, we haven't had a proper economic plan since forever.
No. I'm building up to something.
Yeah.
The amount of foreign currency that leaves Pakistan because of gaming is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You need to remember, every microtransaction that is made in Pakistan is money leaving the country.
Exactly.
That is foreign exchange going abroad. I have heard some of the numbers. One of the reasons why Telenor has put in so much money into gaming, one of the reasons why Jazz put in so much money for a while into gaming was because in लोगों की जो Google Play Store के ऊपर transactions होती थी, from like people who are spending balance to then buy stuff in games, were the numbers are insane. They blew my mind when I heard about them. Right? So gaming is a net negative to our country's economy right now. There's no doubt about that. Right. So as far as economics are concerned, those will always trump. So I think the voter turnout argument, okay, people don't really necessarily know that much about economics and everything, but the amount of gamers who are then coming in who have like expensive devices and everything, right? Those are probably people who are maybe not educated about economics because very few people are, but at least they're feeling the impact of it. So thoda sa cross, I think it cancels itself out, to be honest. Voter incentive probably aata hai in certain things, right? So like large scale party allegiances mein fark padega. But even there, like not to the extent where, for example, formalizing a federation makes sense, in my opinion. Because this isn't like sports where, football mein kya paise bahe jaane hamare. And like, oh, Cristiano Ronaldo का जूता खरीद लिया.
Like वो भी नहीं, like हमारे सारे फुटबॉल ही यहाँ पे बनते हैं, so like वो भी पैसे यहाँ पे use हो रहे हैं.
Right, but like we're not, by playing the game of football, we are not guaranteeing money going outside the country. While by playing any digital game, you are 100% causing a detriment to your country. And again, I'm not saying don't do it. मेरी जिंदगी है. But you know, like I've got a Dota water bottle in my hand right now. मैं कौन हूँ भाई? Hypocritical, yes.
Sipping that good Dota
don't
juice.
Don't play video games, guys. Right? Like, मैं कौन हूँ कहने वाला यार? But it's true.
Yeah.
So you know, when you get into like that side of things, it's different.
So where do you think the future direction of esports kind of lies in Pakistan?
Yeah, Pakistan क्या globally किसी को पता नहीं esports कहाँ जा रही है.
That's true. Like I mean, we had like something.
Other teams disbanded here recently, right?
Disbanded. It's esports is financially unviable.
Yeah, it's a money sink essentially.
Yeah, right.
Then why are people making careers out of it then?
Because the same thing as agencies, right? Everyone in esports is a leech. I'm a leech. I make money off of tournament organizers who are, you know, losing millions.
Yeah.
Players make monies off of teams who are losing millions. On average, in League of Legends, so League of Legends, there is a partnership system for the viewers, and I don't know how informed you guys are about this, but League of Legends has a partnership system where 10 teams have bought in for $10 million each.
Like the franchise system of like overall esports.
Yes, for the franchise system. So for the American League, Riot has a guarantee with them where they give out a certain amount of money to them as well as a part of their revenue share agreement for the entire league, right? So in traditional sports leagues in America, for context, the talent, which is to say players, coaches, players and coaches basically, they are paid a percentage of what the total league revenue is.
Yeah.
So in traditional American sports, what happens is that there are player unions, and those unions then negotiate the amount of percentage for the total league revenue, right? So for example, the NBA makes $1 billion, then maybe the union is negotiated, we're going to make 53% of that, and 53% of that is then turned into a salary cap.
Yeah.
What that means is that across the 48 teams, that the NBA, or jitni bhi hai, mujhe pata nahi yaar, jitni bhi teams hain, every team is going to be allowed to spend $530 million divided by whatever the number of teams is. So let's say 53 teams is. So every one of these teams can spend a maximum of $10 million on their salary for players and coaching staff, right? This is how it's implemented. The union argues for that, right? So 53% of total revenue is going to talent, for example. That's not the actual number. I think the actual number is like 60, but whatever. In American sports, this number ranges from 40 to 65%, in my understanding. The League of Legends, like talent pay compared to the revenue was 210%, right? So this is how people make money and careers, is that the money comes out from team pockets. The team pockets are full of VC because VC looks at the fact that there are millions of people watching. They are of a demographic that has disposable income. They would like to spend money on it. They see pictures of stadiums full of people chanting out TSM, and then Forbes will release an article saying TSM. I think FaZe Clan, they said, is valued at 420 million or something. FaZe Clan, which famously
FaZe Clan
had to go public. on the NASDAQ, which basically means that they're selling their shares to the public. Yeah, sorry to the viewers, in case complicated terms इस्तेमाल हो रही हैं. But okay, FaZe Clan had to go public, and after going public, they lost so much money that they're actually having to close down and sell themselves off right now. The selling price is going to be ridiculously low. They went public at a valuation of $1 billion, and I think the selling price would probably be something like under 100 million, right? So yeah, this is what VC people buy into. They put money into the pockets and they're hoping that it'll 100x. The issue is no one's figured out a way to make people pay. Because of the now comes in again the game developer conspiracy, which is that game developers are making a lot of money off of esports. Because
that's what I was going to say, because unlike traditional sports, the IP is owned by the company that makes the game.
Exactly. Right? So Riot Games is making a lot of money from esports because people who are watching esports are more likely to spend more money, but they do not associate that money with the esports side of things, even though they probably have the data. So even if Riot is then seeing, okay, our league is spending 220% or whatever it is, to Riot, that makes zero difference because they are making way more than that back in their pocket, but they're saying this is microtransactions from players. This is not going to be counted.
It's not part of their business model. This is like a loss. It's like a advertisement, like you could say, a glorified advertisement.
But there is a direct, if you actually were able to isolate, let's say theoretically, if Twitch accounts were associated with Riot accounts, which they are, and then you are able to track the spending tendencies of every person who is watching your game and then seeing, are they more likely to spend after watching? Are they more likely to buy a set that a player was wearing in that game? What are kind of spending patterns exist? Which, by the way, they do have this data. They do track this data. If you are able to see that, then you are able to see the direct amount of money that you are getting back from esports. So for Riot is owned by Tencent. Okay, Tencent doesn't want you to just throw money away. So for Riot, every penny that they put into advertising is then coming back to them as 5 pennies. Theoretically, I don't actually know the number, but like theoretically, so वो फिर भी पैसे बना रहे हैं, right? So this is where, even though esports is profitable in some senses, it isn't profitable to any of the companies that are engaging in it outside of developers. It is very profitable to players. It is very profitable to agencies. It is very profitable to casters. Theoretically, it's actually not that profitable to me. I promise, but. Theoretically, so we are all the leeches. So that's sort of where esports is globally. So Pakistan, going back to the original point, if you're going to ask me where esports in Pakistan is going to go, well, esports in Pakistan could skip this entire problem. We can go past this. We can go straight into profitability, believe it or not. There are viable business models where we can go to profitability. Now, those business models are incredibly complicated to run. They require a large amount of commitment. They require some very competent people in like jobs that they are not initially part of. So I don't know when it'll happen. I don't know how it'll happen, but I hope it happens. But let's see. If any VC out there wants to give me, $3 million for me to do this, hey, I'll do it for you. It's cool.
I mean, it's like chump change for them, bro. Like, shoot $3 million over to this dude. Let's see what he can do. I mean, he could probably make something happen.
It's chump change for them, but it's not. Oh, I do. By the way, I could easily raise that money if I was not in Pakistan. The issue is because Pakistan ki macro policy itni buri hai to VCs that Pakistan ke andar ye paise lana is stupidly hard.
That's like beyond the scope of the question. I mean, like obviously outside of like anywhere outside of Pakistan, you could like manage to do something.
Yeah,
maybe you can pitch an esports team as a ride sharing service as well. The players drive you back home afterwards.
Because we have 4 ex-Kareemers in our county team. And one person who says ex-Airlift on their LinkedIn, but really they were just interviewed by Airlift once.
So before you sign off, are there any future tournaments or anything to look out for in Pakistan that's happening, or anything that you're going to be part of?
I don't know if I'm going to be part of the Dew event. I probably will be, but I don't know yet. So the Dew event is happening in Pakistan. That's pretty cool. To keep an eye out for that. That's it, honestly.
I mean, it's kind of sad that that's kind of where the line stops. But is there anything on the books maybe 2024 down the line, maybe somewhere?
If people plan that far ahead, Pakistan esports would be in a great place, by the way. That is not a thing, but there are kind of stories that I could tell you guys about how stupid stupidly incompetent this industry has been when I've been consulting in it. Like all of your imposter syndrome where you're talking about, like, hey man, can I do justice to this story or whatever?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one story. You know what? I'll tell you one story. I was working with a company that is a multi-million-dollar sales company. बहुत बड़ी company है, right? Like they've worked in satellites.
Yeah, like multinational, like they're big, yeah.
Like Pakistani state company है, but they're multinational and whatnot. Like बड़ी वाली state company.
Yeah.
It's not one of the biggest ones, but अच्छी खासी बड़ी है. अच्छा, इन लोगों ने एक operations team and anyone who wants to do even the bare minimum research, you can find all of these names, right? These guys hired an operations team before they hired me as a consultant. Which is the stupidest thing you can do. Why would you hire a team that's going to be fulfilling all of your operations before you're hiring the person who's supposed to vet it? But whatever, you know what, they thought they were on a timeline. ठीक है. अब this team of operations, like this operational agency was sort of esports endemic, so they knew me. I didn't really know them, but like, you know, thoda bahut aage piche se dekha hua hai, but you know, I'm reasonably well known in the community, alhamdulillah. So mera pata tha, and I've just been around for so long, right? I'm not known because I'm competent. I'm just known because I've been around, right? Like, which is true.
It can be both.
So yeah, I am, but like but so these guys then were on their contract. It said that they would report to me. Like I am formally the person who has to approve or disapprove of everything. But because in लोगों को ये अकड़ थी कि यार ये esports वाला बंदा है and we don't want to be seen as less than him, which is ridiculous because they would never have been seen as less than me. It's just a relationship of how it works. They refused to come to me for anything at all. And they would go straight to like the person who's right underneath the CEO, who I then reported to, and then bother him with that. So they're just being annoying as all hell. Which in itself, you know, is it like number one way to not get hired again by the guys. At any point, if we were discussing looking for proposals, this agency would want to get involved, which I really appreciate, right? I appreciate that they want to do this stuff. But there's a way of doing things. So हमने एक advertisement हमने करवाना था. We needed to get the like promotional video for this tournament together, and we were just talking about agencies and whatnot, and they were really offended that I didn't come to them for a quotation and I didn't come to them for a proposal. मैंने उनको ये कहा कि you know what, guys, you've literally not been talking to me throughout this, just send me a proposal, it's fine, right? And like it's okay. And then they went to the MD and everything. They're like, you know, yaar, we think this guy's not going to give us a fair shot. Please, you have to be the one to look at a proposal. Isko na dikhaye. This guy's got it out for us and everything. Like completely absurd. Yeah. Completely absurd. I did have it out for them at the end of the tournament, not at the beginning of it. This company then writes up a pitch and sends the pitch for what they think the commercial will be. First of all, they say that filming a full commercial with like VFX and with actors and influencers hired is going to take them 80,000 rupees, which is the most ridiculous thing imaginable. For context, I can't imagine it costing under $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Like under $1 million, शायद मैं अपने कुछ contacts वाले से करवा लूं, but like वो होती है यार अच्छा भाईचारे में कर देंगे वरना. Right? So it's insane. Then they sent in the pitch because, you know, the state company, they got thirsty. Oh my God, 80K, yes, 100%. Then they sent in the pitch. Dekho, you guys are in the medical field and everything. Have you guys sent in any research proposals, anything like that, Kabhi?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's PhD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. When you send in anything, how do you send in something in? Like, you know, you're just emailing in a proposal or anything like that to someone professional. How do you send it?
I don't know, you give like an outline of what you can do, realistic expectations, a timeline on what you can achieve and what resources you need. And,
sounds good. Okay.
If it's like a more serious proposal, then there's a vetting process where someone.
But let's say physically, like how do you physically send it? Like, are you sending it in a document? Are you sending it in a file? Are you sending it in an email? Like, what's like the physical?
It's everything. It can be a PDF document. It can be a presentation that you give on a slide with accompanying notes of like 30, 40 pages. You know?
I can see where this is going.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you know how you're not supposed to send it? On WhatsApp. You know how you're also not supposed to send it on WhatsApp as a picture of the document. You know how you're also not supposed to send it on WhatsApp as a picture of the document, which is just a blank paper जिसके ऊपर आपने pencil से लिखा हुआ है और सीधी लाइनें भी नहीं है.
And this is where like God dear, like this is our proposal like, that we're being shut down.
Clearly, I think I might have these pictures because I will always keep them for posterity. I got sent pictures of an A4 sheet जिसके ऊपर बंदे ने पेन से लिखा हुआ है कि ये स्क्रिप्ट है TVC की.
मतलब कॉन्फिडेंस बूस्ट तो इसके बाद अपने बारे में बड़ा मिलता होगा कि हम एटलीस्ट ये तो नहीं कर रहे.
Exactly. Right. This
like
is
Sara imposter syndrome out the window at this moment.
Exactly. This is the level of people who are in the industry securing actual contracts.
God damn.
Right.
That's
so clearly
wild.
you guys can do better than that. The same agency, very soon after that. So whenever I operate, as a consultant, I make certain things clear. I tell companies that if you do not do X, Y, and Z, you are doomed, and your thing is dead, and I will not take responsibility for that because I've already told you this, right? So one of the things I told this company was that, if you do not do a test stream, because we were trying to do dual streams, we were doing Urdu language and English language because these guys wanted to do something new, and I thought it was a great idea as well. I was a big proponent of it, and it's like, okay, cool, we're gonna make some great content. इसके बाद हमने documentaries वाला कुछ करनी हो तो उर्दू में भी अच्छे overview, थोड़ी सी उर्दू commentary की भी हम उठा सकेंगे, right? Like for future content, this would be great. I'm like, cool, but it's technically challenging to do 2 streams. So not very challenging, but a little bit.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, we will not go through this tournament unless I'm given 2 days of full days of test running the stream. These guys refused to test run on the day of the test running 2 days in a row.
I mean, like, and even us just running this podcast.
The reason why they're refusing, the reason why they're refusing is because they didn't want to test run it for me, because I am going to be too scrutinizing. So they will test run it for one of the people who was like in charge of hiring me. They test run it for him. He's never seen an esports tournament before in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, to him, it looks fine. Yeah.
I mean, YouTube पे चल रही है, fit है, 10 minute के लिए it's up. And then every single day, the degree of problems that existed, that tournament, the company effectively shut down because of that tournament.
Good God.
Because that one operations team that they hired. Like, there were other issues that transpired later on as well, but after that, they never had anything to pitch to people, because this was the first amount of money that they're putting in to show operational success. Operational success koi hua hi nahi hai yaar.
Exactly.
Kuch kaam hi nahi kiya. Right? So this is what you're competing with. If you want to come in and make a documentary, this is what you're competing. If you want to do any content, this is what you're competing. If you want to be an agency, this is what you're competing with. There are certain agencies that are good now. Don't get me wrong. This was maybe 2 years ago. Kuch agencies achhi hain, but they're still not, like, you're not competing with much.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I promise you that. Come in. This industry is free for you, man. Like, I'm 26 years old, and I am undisputedly the voice of like business in this industry in this country, right? मैंने नास्ते BBA किया, भाई. That's my business like background. I'm not like a really educated person. I don't think I'm really well informed about all of these things either. I just read a lot. Right? And so yeah, come in. The door is open. Come in, do what you want. You'll be better than the people who are already here.
I mean, that's a very beautiful message to like end on, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on.
Yeah. If you had anything to add, like Q, if you wanted to go.
Nah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the doors are open, so guys. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We like it was last minute and everything. And if you have any,
Get the name right this time.
Any last where can our guests find you if you want to like leave a plug or something?
Google for one thing. Okay. But no, they can also they can find me on Twitter or Instagram. I don't do much on social media, which was one of the big mistakes of my career.
We can see
just Google Mamoon Sabri Esports, or even just Mamoon TeaTime Sabri, and you will find me immediately. Like,
so you can go and check him out on Twitter, on Instagram.
On Twitter, I'm at GGTeaTime.
We'll leave your socials down in the description below if you guys want to check him out. This has been the Q&A podcast with TeaTime, Mamoon Sabri. Inshallah, we will catch you again next week. Allah Hafiz.
Mamoon.
Fuck me.